Hey cycling fans, welcome to another episode of This Week in American Cycling. As always, Dave Towle here with Brad Sohner. An amazing week of racing. We're going to start with Kate Courtney continuing her dominance in the UCI Mountain Bike World Cup. Then we'll talk about some crit racing. They were in Boise and Detroit. We're also going to wrap up the GRT with the ProGRT Calendar on This Week in American Cycling.
I don't know that we've seen anything like this before. The reigning world champion is on fire right now as she completes yet another double at the UCI Mountain Bike World Cup in Ligier, France. In a dominant fashion, she wins both the short track and cross country.
Yeah, they weren't even close out there in Ligier. Nobody in the picture for either finish. Let's start with the short track. She rode on the front for the first 6 laps before attacking at 2 laps to go. Never looked back and crossed the line solo for a dominant win. Then it was on to cross country day.
Yeah, and that played out much the same way. To tell you the truth, again, protagonist Yolanda Neff was the only rider that could go with her, but she dispatched Neff on a downhill, and that was it. Courtney picks up her 3rd cross-country win of the year. This is the 2nd time that she has swept a weekend. She did it in Albstadt, Germany earlier this year. She remains the UCI World Cup leader with a 175-point lead. Also want to recognize Chris Blevins. He was 9th in the U23 cross-country field. Nice to see so much American talent on the lead up to an Olympic year.
4 more stops in the UCI World Cup, and remember, they do swing to North America for the last 2 stops, including the World Championships up in Canada, and then a week later, the series ends September 8th at Snowshoe Resort in West Virginia. I know we'll be there cheering on Kate Courtney.
Domestic mountain bike calendar wraps up with the ProGRT. We saw Claire Bouchard and Nico Mullally, who won the final stop in Idaho. It wasn't quite enough to get Mullally to the top of the GRT leaderboard, however. He ends up 6 points behind Charlie Harrison, as Caroline Washam ends up the series champion with 114 points over Rachel Pegau.
Crit riders making stops in Boise and Detroit. Let's start with Detroit, where Sam Schneider wins along with Ryan O'Boyle on a windy day at the 3rd year event there. Boise brought out a great crowd as always. Justin Williams continued his winning ways, and Jen Valente wins the women's race fresh off her gold medal performance at Track Nationals.
Also going on up in Idaho, it was the Chrono Kristin Armstrong, hosted by the 3-time Olympic gold medalist Kristin Armstrong in her hometown of Boise, Idaho. Her protege, Chloe Dygert-Owen, wins there on a new course, beating Olga Zablinskaya by almost 2 minutes. It was Sergei Tvetkov, the Romanian champion, who just barely edges out American prodigy Brandon McNulty by a narrow 6 seconds for the win.
Checking in on our riders in Europe, the women's Giro Rosa wrapped up this week. A good result for Katie Hall. She ends up 8th place, but she was riding in support of her Boels-Dolman's teammate, Anna van der Breggen, who picked up a 2nd place overall. So a successful week there for Katie. We also have our men racing over in France.
Yeah, we're 1 man down. Unfortunately, TJ Van Garderen having to exit the race as he abandons after stage 7 with a broken thumb. That was a rough crash. It really was. The other Americans hanging in there, though. Always enjoyable watching the work on Twitter from Chad Haga. He's always impressive as things shake out over in France, as he says. Ben King and Joey Roscoff also remain doing a great job for their teams.
So that's it for this week. Can't get over how amazing Kate Courtney has been. If you haven't had a chance, be sure to watch all of her races on Red Bull TV. They do a really good job with their production, so encourage you to go watch that. We also dropped our first episode of Wild Ride here on CycleStream TV following the Wildlife Generation team. They've had a film crew embedded with them for the last 6 months. You can watch the first episode now on CycleStream TV, with more episodes coming later this month. So for Dave Towle, my name is Brad Sohner saying thanks for watching and goodbye from Los Angeles. We're off next week on This Week in American Cycling, as we'll be around the country covering the racing, but we'll be back after that with another episode. See you then.